It's 11 o'clock, so you know what time that means. It's Woke Women Wednesday. Happy New Year. Senator Dianne Wilkerson with you this morning. And oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about, so much to be thankful for. Um, we have an incredible lineup of guests for the month of January and into February, Black History Month, and into March, Women's History Month. But today, I just want to get us started by kind of recapping where we are with a little bit, just a little bit of where we were, but not until I do what I must do, what I always do, and that is to say um, thank you to the sisters with and a brother with a vision who knew how important it was in 2020. Now, I can say 2020 is 2 years ago, but who knew how important it was going to be. It was to be how important it is that we have a medium for Black people to get information, up to date information in a timely fashion, accurate information, and we try so hard to do that. And so I want to say thank you to them. Had a chance to talk with them about the vision for 2022, and it's exciting, and you're going to see it. We're all going to be the beneficiaries of it. But thank you, sisters. WWOCradio.com, Facebook Live every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. I come to you and talking about all things Black, Brown, and COVID. I thought that was a 6-month assignment, right? In 2020. I'll talk about COVID, and then that's when that we move on, talk about something else. We're still talking about COVID because we're still knee deep, neck deep in COVID. And so at 11 o'clock every morning, I'm privileged to come to you and talk to you and share with you, bring exciting and informative guests to you. And we've had some of the best, and we're going to have that. We're going to continue that tradition in 2022. And then at 8 p.m. On Wednesdays, our fierce and fearless, I call her my fierce and fearless warrior, citywide Boston City Councilor Julia Mejia. She will come at 8 p.m. And so look for her in January because we've had conversations, the two of us, about what 2022 looks like for us. And it is going to be exciting because there's so much more involved and to be done. We have a new city council as of last week. We have a brand new mayor. We have a governor's race that's going to be taking off in the next several months. We have the state legislative race. We have a national conversation going on about voting rights, which the Republican Party has turned into the autocracy party and decided that that's their mission is to figure out every way possible to stop Black people and Brown people from voting. And so we're watching that. And I'm hoping we're going to be more than watching. We're going to be in it. We're going to be involved because we have so much at stake to save the democracy that we have. It ain't perfect, but it's the one we got. And it's right now teetering on extinction if we do nothing. So that doing nothing is not an option. But right here at home, and I talk about Boston, Black Boston, Brown Boston. When I say brown, I'm talking about Latino people, Black and Latino, Black and Brown. I use those terms interchangeably. And I know they're all new phrases. I think about the era of COVID, we have a whole new vocabulary. 1 year ago, if I said the word BIPOC, you all wouldn't know what I was talking about. I actually don't use that word. I don't like the phrase because it helps uh, 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 disappear the people we're talking about, Black and Latino folk, have never, at any point during this whole COVID experience, been in a position of anything but the worst, right? And it hasn't stopped. And why would it, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, why would you be thinking that things would turn out differently? And so our battle is to really force, push, press all of those policymakers, thought leaders who are in charge of making key decisions about our lives during COVID to do it differently. And the resistance is there, some with the best of intentions, I would say. But I want to just give you an overview. I thought this is what we would do today. And then next week, we're going to get in it. So we'll be having guests to talk about different aspects of what I want to share with you today, because I do think that what I see playing out in Boston, I see playing out across the state, I see playing out across the country. And so I really do think, we have the best and the brightest. We graduate, kind of more because we have so more colleges and universities. So we graduate the brightest of the brightest every year, every year here in Massachusetts. And so, given that, what it says to me is that we have all the makings of an opportunity for a different outcome. But we're going to have to be focused on it. We're going to have to be focused, using a little bit of the experience and wisdom from those who knew, or who have been through it, because just being through it doesn't mean you know how to do it. And I'm not suggesting that, but sharing that experience may keep somebody else from putting their hand on that hot stove and getting burned, and mixing that with the new energy that young and new ideas bring, and sometimes it's old and new ideas bring, and we've got to use that, and insist that we have the ability to do that. And it is really, without question, different than we normally talk about, where things could go wrong if somebody doesn't get to, we don't get to integrate that neighborhood, or we don't get to get that job or that position that we think somebody else should have taken. When you're talking about COVID, a wrong step could be death. It is literally, not figuratively, literally a matter of life and death. That's what we're dealing with here. So when folks mess up, when they don't follow, when they don't do what makes sense, then this is what is happening. And it's happening all over, all around us. And death just seems to be stuck in the air to the point where you can almost smell it. Is she, over exaggerating? No. Is it your imagination? No, it's not your imagination. I actually had to go through this whole process myself. Am I feeling like there are more people dying because I'm getting older? My eyes are getting older. So the people I'm looking around and that are actually, every day you wake up and you see another, GoFundMe, because it's become the new insurance policy process. GoFundMe. We got to get out of that thinking too. And I realized, no, it's not me. You're reading. What's happening is we are experiencing more death than normal from people at every age group, and there are all kinds of theories about it. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm not trying to speculate on that. All I'm telling you is that you see what you think you see. And here's what the other thing I would say. What I can say about it: people, human beings, whether it's American or Germany, it doesn't really matter. Human beings were never meant to be sedentary. We're supposed to be moving. And before COVID even existed, we would have conversations, or you could recall, about how much we move. We move too much. People moving too fast. You got to slow down. Well, what we were never designed, our bodies are not designed to do, is to be sedentary. And COVID has forced that reality on so many people, so many people. And at least for me, I believe that it has a lot to do with why we are seeing so many people dying, is because we have stopped moving. And there are all kinds of reasons, health, it's about health. I'm not saying anybody died from not moving. I'm telling you that we got to keep our bodies moving, because that's the way it's supposed to work. You got to keep your lungs moving. You got to keep breathing. And if it means nothing but walking up and down the stairs inside your house 20, 30 times a day, that's at least some portion of the exercise that you would get if you were out and about. Because I know I'm not moving in the way that I used to. Grab the keys, go. Grab the keys, go. It's not happening, folk. And so you got to figure out some way at home to make up for that, because that's the way the motor runs. That's the motor, meaning your heart. That's the way we keep the motor running, is we're moving. So move around, even in your house. If you have to stand up and just walk in place while you're watching something on TV, it's movement. It's movement. Those things that require your chest to heave up and out because you're breathing. Do those things at home. Now, let's talk about Boston. Why it's important is because, this is we are barreling, careening fast to January 15th. January 15th. Why is that important? Well, no, not just the birth date of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It's because it is the day at which the switch gets clicked, or flipped, if you will, in Boston. What are you talking about, Senator Wilkerson? What I'm talking about is that starting January 15th, Saturday, 2 days from now, right? Um, in order to to gain access to restaurants in Boston. So the restaurateurs are now going to be kind of the gatekeepers. You must have documented, um, be able to document at least one vaccine. So you know, remember about, yeah, if you got a test, a recent test, that's over. Nothing to do with the test anymore. We should be testing for our own benefit because you always want to know, what your health status is. But it's a nice test not going to get you in a restaurant. You must have proof of a vaccine. So it means a vaccine card. The state even created a process that allows you to register to click, and you can click and you can pull it up on your phone. And everybody's, oh, what? Well, of course that should happen. That's the kind of technology you would expect several months ago, but you can do that now. You can do that. You will not be able to enter a theater, a movie theater, a play. You won't be able to see one without proof of vaccine. No more tests. You will not be able to enter a gym, meaning a community center, right? For us. So uh, 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 um, the pools, the gyms, you can't do it without the proof of a vaccine. Card, a vaccine, you got to have documented proof. Um, when Mayor Michelle Wu first announced it, I was so I'm actually happy. I would say happy, excited, supportive, because I think that the way we've been living with COVID has allowed people to be so selfish. We keep talking about my personal choice decisions. Okay, all well, okay, whatever. The reality is that you don't have a right to be so reckless in the exercise of your own personal liberty that you endanger someone else's. You don't. There's no right to do that. There's no right anyway. There's no right in the Constitution. So I supported this notion. As a co-founder of the Boston Black COVID-19 Coalition, we were very clear up front. We support, because we see the folks. We see people. We every day we're testing. We were testing at Roxbury Multi-Service Center last Tuesday. We had 15 positive tests in the first 45 minutes. If you go to Prince Hall, which has been one of the most steady and reliable sites where people in this community could go, to get a vaccine or a test, about 3 of every 10 people that they're testing are testing positive. So it's moving through our community. And the reality is that no matter what you think, no matter what your personal opinion, like I said, the science is the science and the medicine is the medicine. The majority of people who are catching it, and vaccines are not about stopping you from getting COVID. Vaccines about stopping COVID from killing you when you get it. That's the purpose. That's the purpose. So don't say, well, I know somebody got a vaccine and they died. I know somebody who got a vaccine and they got COVID. Right. The odds. 99% of the people hospitalized for COVID right now were not vaccinated. So stop it. Like the people who are dying from it are the people who get it and they're not vaccinated. Now you can take the math and do the numbers and do everything you want with it. But for me, I'm going to rely on the science and rely on the numbers. And I'm not talking about the science guy. I'm not talking about Dr. Oz. I'm talking about real doctors who work every day and going in and out and have been at all of our hospitals and the community health centers and risking their very lives to keep all of us alive, even the ones who are ignorant. And I don't use the word ignorant as an insult. Ignorant means moving and acting without knowledge. That's what it means. So starting on Saturday, if you do not have documented proof, you will not be able to gain access to any of those places. Now, as I said, Black Boston Coalition, when Mayor Wu announced it a month and a half ago, we said, oh, makes sense. Okay, let's go. But here's what we also said. We support this decision. We support this step with one proviso. And that is that if we're going to limit access to people based on their ability to show documentation of vaccine, then the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as well must, not should, must do everything humanly possible to provide the resources for vaccinations and testing for the people who are trying so hard to be compliant so that they can continue to move around unfettered and no restriction, which means, oh, fine, if that's the rule you want to make, and you want the rule conditioned upon my ability to show a vaccine card, then just tell me where I need to go to get vaccine. Tell me where I need to go to get vaccinated, right? And that is where the problem has been. I don't have to tell you all. You've seen the lines. I shudder when I think about the lines that I'm seeing, the lines on Talbot Avenue at Carver Lodge, the lines at Bowdoin Health Center, the lines at Prince Hall, the lines at Anna Cole that 2 Sundays ago went out the door, down the street, down around Lamartine, up Center Street, all the way to the Stop and Shop. Lines. You've seen the lines at Prince Hall last Monday when it was 20 degrees, and I saw pictures like children, seniors. Folks, there is absolutely no way in the world that we're supposed to be standing in line in the frigid cold to get a vaccine, to get a test. You can't, bunch people up. We understand that, but that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. So let me tell you in plain and simple, so you'll understand what is happening here in Boston. Despite our constant and repeated advice, based on our knowledge and the work that we have been doing, we know our community, we know how this works, we know what worked, and how we were able to take Massachusetts and Boston a year ago in the end of January, early February, when we started vaccinating people. Massachusetts was number 46 out of 50 states in Black vaccinations. We were 48 out of 50 states in Latino vaccinations. When the Commonwealth of Massachusetts opened the mass site at the Reggie Lewis Center, the company that they hired to manage it, CIC Health, had the wisdom to follow the advice of Reverend Liz Walker. Yep, that's right. Our Reverend Liz, who at the time was serving as a member of the governor's vaccine task force. She said, if you're going to be doing vaccine in our community, you got to talk to people who know how to touch and how to reach and how to mobilize people. She advised CIC Health to call us. They did. In 6 weeks, we took Massachusetts mostly through the work that was done in Boston, the capital city, the largest population of Black and Latino folk in Massachusetts. We took Massachusetts from number 46 to the top 5. We took Massachusetts from number 48 in Latino vaccinations to the top 5. Why? Because we know how to mobilize people. Here's what we know. Number 1, don't tell Black and Latino people to register online. It didn't work for anybody, if you remember last. I think the state changed the process 10, 12 times. It didn't work. It doesn't work. That's not how we are mobilized. So what we decided to do was to call people, not wait for people to call us. We did flyers. We had an outreach team. We had a phone bank team. On that phone, we were calling housing developments. We were calling churches. We were calling small businesses and saying, you have any employees you want to get vaccinated? We were calling elected officials. And I brag on Councilor Julie Mejia, because we called all the elected officials, but she took this thing seriously and set up a Google Doc, and she had her people on the phone. Her staff was calling the barbershops, and we called the beauty salons all over our community. And she alone by herself, signed up 2,400 people. We called Tropical Foods. They were so happy. They had half of their staff come on Saturday, one half of the staff come Sunday. We called Metco. Get this word out to your parents, right? That's how we did that. And there's a whole lot of other little nuances, but here's the bottom line. If you want Black people and want Latino people to come to a place, you don't tell them to go online and register to get there. What? Did you all forget Did they forget? Their own measure, their own numbers told us that all the time that the Boston Public Schools were on remote, there 25 to 30% of our students never got online because their parents did not have access to the internet. So how, if you say this is my priority and this is who we want, how in the world do you set up a process that has the resources that I need to save my life on the other side based on my ability to register? Could you see it? Anybody's 86, 85. My mom's 86 years old. She wasn't registering anything. So we went and got our people, and they came. Tens of thousands of people came. And it was so successful that the folks in Springfield created their own Springfield Black COVID-19 Coalition and did the same thing, right? Which is the second largest between Springfield and Boston, probably the second largest population, the majority of Blacks and Latinos that live in the state between those two cities, even more total together than Lawrence. So this is what we did. It worked. Right now, folks, you want to go to, let me think, Carver Lodge, Talbot Avenue, Melnia Cast facility on MLK Boulevard. You got to register. Was it mass facts or something? Facts. I don't even know. I'm not, and I like to give you information. I'm not even trying to give people information to go online and register for anything. I'm not telling you to go find the Q card. Why? Because I know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. And so, see, the state gets to say, oh, we have all these sites, but nobody knows. There's no marketing. There's no flyer. We got flyers all over the cars in Washington Park Mall, all up and down the street, Hyde Park. I see people posting, I saw your flyer on Blue Hill Ave. That's how I found out, right? Because that's how we have to communicate with people, right? Like, this isn't new, folks. This goes back, if I talk about the civil rights movement, right? Think about that. How we were able to organize meetings in churches overnight. No cell phones, no house phones. Never mind Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, no faxes, no emails, none of that existed. But we could fill a church overnight. Why? Legs. The youth, the teenagers, the college students who ran those flyers all over the place and pasted them on trees. Literally, it worked then. It's still working. So when you tell me that we want to vaccinate Black people, Latino people, and you have material that's not in Spanish or Haitian Creole or Cape Verde, right? Or Cantonese or Spanish, if that's what you have, you're not serious. But on Saturday, they're going to flip that switch. And if you don't have the ability to document, you are going to be denied access. Our restaurants, think about this. They took such a hit during COVID, right? They took a hit. Now, the very people who have been working so hard like us, trying to provide them business, to keep them in business, are not going to be able to get access to their restaurants. You think the people who are coming from Brookline or Newton to come to Grove Hall or Common Square to eat their dinner? Heck no, they're not. They're not coming to our restaurants. So here's the bottom line. While we're not registering to get vaccinated at the CAS, at the Prince Hall, at the Codman, at Carver Lodge, do you know who is registering? I'll give you a guess. Yep. Folks from all Newton, Quincy, Braintree, Saugus. So we're standing there because our folks do show up. Those lines prove it. This is not the actions of people who don't want to be vaccinated or don't want to be tested. They will stand in line at 20 degrees with some leggings and some sneakers on, right? We want to be tested. They're standing in line watching the folks from other neighborhoods and other cities and towns walk past them. Why? Because they registered. So they have an appointment. Now, things got so ugly 2 weeks ago at the Carver Lodge on Talbot Avenue that people acted out. I'm not condoning anything, but Lord, do I understand. You get out, I get up, I go stand in line from 7 a.m. in the morning until 10 a.m. and somebody comes out and says, We don't have any other open appointments other than the registered appointments today. So we're not going to be able to do testing or vaccine, and people showed out. So here come the news trucks, here come the police. And what I'm saying to you is that you have to understand that. I ain't talking about condone. I'm saying you have to understand that there are going to be some people who are going to have an issue with that process. So, and I know that there's some powers that be, whether City Hall or the State House, they get very upset when I say it. But here's the bottom line. In the last 2 or 3 months, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park have become most efficient at getting people vaccinated who don't live here. That was never the goal. That can't be the goal because the clock is ticking. And then on the 15th, they're going to say, all right, close the curtain. No ticky. You can't come in. I think it was Frosty, the snowman, remember? And he say, no ticky, no service, right? No card, no restaurant. No card, no gym. No card, no theater, no movie. One of the few sources of entertainment that we have. Go watch a movie after Saturday if you don't have it. So there have been lots of discussions this week. From organizations, from restaurateurs. I understand the Boston's Black Hospitality Coalition had an emergency meeting this morning. The few Black taverns and bars and restaurants that we do have, they have to be nervous. They have to be concerned. I don't blame them, folks, because something's not right about this. It's just not right. It's not right. So we've got sites open that no one even knows they're open because the state thinks all they got to do is say, we got a site on MLK. We got a site in Nubian Square. But if you don't tell anybody, and this is their whole thing, that they don't, that they'll pay. They're paying somebody to build little houses on the Shattuck to take the folks from Mass and Cass all the way over there and put them in a little house. You think those little houses were free? Heck no, they weren't free. But somebody wrote a check. You can bet whoever the state wrote that check to is somebody who has connections to the state. So they're going to be some monies and checks, but ask them to pay folks to walk up and down the street in 20-degree weather and drop flyers. And it's like, just blow us off. And now we have a problem. And so here we are, situation. We can't get anybody to do vaccinations. Our community health centers are tapped. Their staff is dealing with COVID just like our, restaurants, just like hospitals, right? So they're not even able to do vaccinations on a major effort. They can't. They're saying, if somebody comes in and asks for one, we can do it. But can you imagine? Our community health centers are not able to do a massive vaccination effort because they don't have the staff or the resources. The states and the city resources that they put to identifying sites isn't maximized because nobody knows they're there. And they have no outreach, no marketing, and heaven forbid, no master cleaning operation the way we had at Reggie Lewis. So you got to worry about not walking in there and getting COVID while you're trying to get vaccinated or get a test for COVID, because they don't take that seriously, because they don't respect us. The elected officials are not talking to each other, and they surely are not talking to us. This is the mess we have. And that mess, though, costs people lives. We have never, in any measure that I could think of, not in the economic measure, had a situation where within the Black community, we have a level of the disparity that we have. What do I mean by that? So right now, Roxbury, which is where I live, Roxbury is about 73, 75, close to 75% vaccinated. That's incredible. Dorchester, 02121, 02124, we always crack because that's always the hardest. Grove Hall and H Block is 65%. Still 10 points behind Roxbury, but they're doing very well. And even in Dorchester. Mattapan, it's not even at 55%. which means Mattapan is 20 points behind Roxbury. Now, we've had disparity between Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Newton, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Back Bay, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan in the South End, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and South Boston. We've never had this kind of disparity from between Roxbury and Dorchester and Mattapan. So Roxbury 75, Dorchester 65, Mattapan is at a 53% vaccination rate. Folks, that's scary for a host of reasons. One, it means that almost half of the folks that live in Mattapan are not vaccinated. Second, it means that about half the folks that live in Mattapan as of Saturday are going to be restricted from a whole host of activity that may be, in fact, a part of their daily routine. Boom. And some of them don't even know it. That's why this is a problem. And so, we sent the message. We sent the message to the mayor. We want to support you, but we can't support this. We want to support you, Mayor Wu. We can't support this. I think the idea, the intent that she has is right, but Boston hasn't met the demand for the resources that are needed to put people in. It is scary, Muriel. Mattapan. Now, I'll tell you even why this is more scary, because of the three neighborhoods, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan has the highest home ownership. So it's not like we're talking about, people who don't. The highest home ownership of the three neighborhoods is in Mattapan. So there's a whole lot of reasons why this reality is so scary, but I'll tell you one right now. There is no vaccine effort going on in Mattapan. There is no major testing effort going on in Mattapan. Mattapan Community Health Center has not been willing to open the door and come outside those four walls where every other community health center in our neighborhood is actively working. From Whittier Street, that's got their van all over the place. Christ, I was in Mattapan Square 2 weeks ago. Whittier's van was parked behind the food market. Whittier Street Health Center's van. Harvard Street is holding down Harvard Street. They have been the ones holding down Prince Hall, which is one of the busiest. East Boston Health Center, right? Codman Square Health Center, Bowdoin Health Center, all busy. Mattapan, we don't have staff. We don't have this. Nothing. Right now, nothing. We get half an hour here. Pastor Kiki, who has been working relentlessly, just tirelessly at the Immigrant Family Services Institute at 1626 Blue Hill Avenue. Is blowing up my phone this morning. He can't even find a test kit. There are no test kits available in Boston this week. The week before the 15th triggers, there are no test kits. Explain that. Boston has not provided the requisite resources to people who are trying to get them to get compliant so that they don't lose out on the ability to access. We haven't done it. And if we haven't done it, it is very hard, very difficult to justify this January 15th date. You can't do it. This is this is nothing different than like in the South, where you say you've got, voter registration ends on Sunday, and then you close all the offices where you can register to vote, except the one in the white neighborhood. That's literally what is happening here, folks. This is very scary. Very scary, Muriel. That's the only word that I could use to describe it. And then a couple of other things I want to share with you, and then we're going to wrap up. We've now moved. If you remember last year when they opened all of the different vaccine sites and the mass sites, they also had respite sites. Remember the Boston Convention Center was one. We had some in old dorms. I think Suffolk dorms were turned into sites for people who were COVID. They could go and stay until they were free. Well, we don't have them anymore. But I would suggest to you that even if we did, it wouldn't be working. Why? Because the people that we see testing positive, like in the first 15 minutes we were at Roxbury Multi-Service Center last Tuesday, we had 15 people. 6 of those people were 3 grandmothers and 3 grandchildren, 5, 6, and 7, and grandmas, who were taking care of 2 of those grandmas, and 2 of the grandmas were taking care of the children because their mother had COVID. So she was quarantined in one part of the house, and grandma's trying to keep the kids away from mom, right? And so one of the grandmothers who didn't test positive, but the grandson did, she said, I'm surprised that I didn't because he's been sleeping with me because his mom has COVID. So why am I even raising that? Because here's the reality. Even if we had a respite site, anybody sending grandma out the house over to South Boston or to a dorm to stay for 10 days? They're not, right? But here's what we do know, that people are staying at home. I got people right now in my house where I'm sitting in quarantine, in another part of my house, who were traveling, came back Sunday. I have not laid eyes on them. I haven't seen them. So I'm hoping today they can go get a test, right? And then I'll see them. But I haven't seen them because we're doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a space where we can do that, right? But there's some who are not. So we need to be much more focused about living in the house with people with COVID. So next week, we're going to start with that. So my guests, I'm going to have guests on. We're going to talk to you about how do we do that? How do we live in a house with COVID and try to make sure that we don't all get sick and all, because that's our reality. Now, Adrena, that would be such a wonderful suggestion about people making appointments with their primary care. My granddaughter, had to get her appointment with her primary care because she is an athlete. She could not risk standing in line last week in frigid temperature. She couldn't. And so she did. She went to her primary care physician to get her pediatrician to get her she got a PCR test actually. And she's one of those fortunate. What you need to know, Adrena, some 35-40% of the people that live in our community don't have a PCP. And we all know that too, which is one of the reasons why these sites are so important, right? They don't have a PCP. They get their health care when something happens and they go to the emergency room. And so when at times like this, they don't have that default, but those who do are taking care of it, right? And you're right, but you're right. You asked if the vaccine's available before you go. You do that. And so we have all kinds of ways. The reality is that the resources, the monies to do this have been given to our state and our city. Our congressional delegation has done a fantastic job. But you can't get an appointment. Sandy's right. You can't get an appointment. You can't get an appointment. Some people are saying a week, 2 weeks, right? And so that's why our folks are like, let me just go. That our people show up. They show up. And I'm proud of them for showing up. I'm scared to death for them for having to show up in 14-degree weather, standing outside. Grandmas, you could see them. It's not what somebody told. We saw them with our own eyes. That can't be how it works, folks. And so we're going to be calling on you to help us kind of raise our voices to say, we're going to do this. We're going to do this right. This is not a joke. This is not play. Can't let them, playing the politics with this. This is life and death. We see our people all around us, oh my goodness. We say always something, always something, always something. Folks, I just want you to stay warm, stay safe. The mask, by the way, I was jokingly saying this in June, in November and in December, but it's not a joke. If you don't have a KN95 mask, wear 2 masks. If you don't have wear 2 masks. This Omicron is so contagious. You could test negative today and positive tomorrow. You could test negative this morning and test positive tonight. It's moving. The mouths, you stay away from people with their mouths open. COVID enters our body through our mouth, mostly through our nose, and even through your eyes. So you have to be careful. You got to be careful. That's why they say that mask has got to cover them both. You notice these people walking around with the mask covering the mouth and like this. I'm like, I can't even talk to you about it. I'm like, cover your nose. Because that's the entry. That is, in fact, the most common entry through your nose, nasal. That's why it's connected to, what are you doing? Breathing, your lungs. COVID negatively impacts our lungs. So, y'all know I could talk about this forever. I'm gonna, being the agitator, I own it. I wear it. That's my badge. I tell people that's my assignment. And thanks to Woke Women Wednesday, WWOC Radio, they give me the vehicle to do that on a weekly basis. So we will be back. Thank you again to the Sisters with a Vision. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Sandy, and because she's gone through this experience. Stay on it. Stay on it. Get your kids vaccinated. I'd be scared to death as a parent if I had grade school. My grandson, we fuss. He's the brightest little kid, but he gets cited all the time because he won't keep his mask on in school. So, yep, Kingston, I'm hollering you out. I'm calling you out. You're going to say, Grandma, yeah, you got to keep the mask on. And if you don't have a KN95, wear 2 masks. Stay safe, folks. We will see you next week. And we're going to start with my guest talking about how you stay in a house, living in a house with someone when you have COVID. Important information. We need to have it. We, of course, are going to share it because that's what we do. WWOC Radio, Woke Women Wednesday. Dianne Wilkerson signing off. I'll see you next week. Stay safe.